Hello and welcome to the Hellgate podcast for this special live edition with Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani at the Museum of the Moving Image. In beautiful Astoria, Queens, or is it Long Island City, Queens? Queens is just like that. You just don't know which neighborhood is which. East Elmhurst is north of Elmhurst. Who knew? All right, so in a few minutes, we'll be joined by Assemblymember Mamdani for the last chance that Hellgate will get to have him be on the record about several issues before early voting begins in just a few hours. There's going to be some hardballs, some not so hardballs, and mostly we just want to try to get him information to the voters at the last possible second. So we really appreciate that everyone is here. A lot of people are Hellgate subscribers. Hellgate is, give it up for yourself. Hellgate is made possible by subscribers like you or a worker-owned news outlet. We're also joined today by people from the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY. Let's give it up for them.
Give it up.
And we will be hearing later some questions that they've sent on over to the Assembly member. As you know, Hellgate is a worker-owned news outlet. We also get support from wonderful donors. One of those donors is Ruth Ann Harnish, and she has supported the Hellgate podcast over the past year. It's made it possible for us to chime in on the news of the day for, a year now, and we're proud to announce that with her continued support, we're actually going to be continuing the podcast for the next year and moving forward from there. So we'll be covering whoever the next mayor might be every week in your ears, and with a wonderful edition that we are calling the Ruth Ann Harnish Studio. So get ready for that. All right, let me introduce our very large cast of characters on the stage. We have Adlin Jackson.
Hello.
Katie Way.
Hi.
Chris Robbins.
Ahoy.
Nick Pinto.
Hey.
Jesse Edwards.
Hello.
And of course, I'm Max Rivlin Nadler. All right. Thank you. Yeah, give it up for me, all right?
Damn.
You know? And without any further ado, let's bring him on stage, Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani.
How's it going? Thank you for coming.
All right, well, we didn't get that type of response, but we'll take it. All right, listen, we just got through the debates. First off, thank you for being here, man. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Ruth Ann.
Thank you.
True.
Yes, that's huge. We just got through the debates. Everyone had to answer questions. Some people were maybe a bit more evasive on, so right off the bat, should parades have a right to exist? 'Cause you weren't
All of them.
all of them.
I was on Fox 5 today for an interview, and at the end they were like, and now to end the interview, we have a fun Halloween game where you pick something out, you answer the question. I was like, oh yeah, for sure. So I reach in, go around, pick it out. What's your favorite parade?
You're being haunted. Oh, darn.
They all said that.
Oh man! All right, we got everyone. Get rid of card number 5. The,
Yeah.
the grab bag game.
Wait, what did you say?
I said the Puerto Rican Day Parade.
It's yeah.
Nice.
Fine.
Puerto Rico no se vende.
Columbus Day erasure.
Moving on. All right. We all watch those debates, obviously, and you're up there, and you've got Andrew Cuomo doing Andrew Cuomo things.
Yeah.
You've got Curtis Sliwa saying outrageous things. Claiming you support global jihad. Obviously, all of the things going on with Andrew Cuomo as we get to the home stretch. What is going through your head when you're trying to stay focused and that level of vitriol is coming your way?
I think there's some of it that you come to expect, especially with Cuomo. A lot of his attacks are a variation of what he's been saying for many, many months. It did take me aback when Curtis Lewa alleged that I'd supported global jihad. It took me aback because the naked Islamophobia that has come to the forefront of these last few days of the race, it's like something we haven't seen in our city's politics in quite some time. You know, Curtis alleges that on the debate stage. The day after, Andrew Cuomo goes on Sid Rosenberg's show, Sid Rosenberg, a radio show who's described me as an animal and as a terrorist. And Sid Rosenberg said that if 9/11 was to happen again, I would be cheering it. And Andrew Cuomo laughs and agrees. And then later that same day, Andrew Cuomo announces the endorsement of Eric Adams. Eric Adams gets to the mic and says that we have to make sure we don't become like Europe. And I'm doing this to stop violent extremists who are burning churches in Nigeria. And then I see an ad that calls me a terrorist. I see another AI ad that's mocking the way that I eat. And it is all with an intended message about both Muslims in New York City and what's permissible to say about Muslims in New York City. And so today I actually went, just before Jummah prayers, I shared some remarks outside of the mosque in the Bronx on my own reflections on the Islamophobia in this race, and also the inability, no matter how much you return to your central message, to be able to get away from it.
Did you think it was always going to end up here? I mean, that people would get desperate enough, or are they showing kind of their true selves? And if so, like, these people live in New York City. You always say you're going to be a mayor for all New Yorkers. What does that mean to be the mayor of people who this is finding resonance with? Who you know?
Vicky Palladino's mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, she sells T-shirts that say "Deport Zohran," and it's just it's quite disgusting what's become seen as acceptable, and I do think what makes the Muslim experience in New York City unique is not that we face indignities. Many New Yorkers face indignities. It's the tolerance of those indignities and the ways in which it's come to be normalized, expected, accepted. It's seen more as if a punchline than something to feel shame about. And I think I'd expected desperation. But, you know, when we started this campaign, I was often asked, what is your model of how you're going to win? Who from 2021? You know, and I would speak about, in many ways, we were trying to bridge the Maya Wiley campaign and the Eric Adams campaign in terms of what we were speaking about, who we were speaking to, the coalition we were able to build. And part of that is because, I said that because the first time I met Eric Adams was in 2020 during COVID. We were both giving out free halal meals in Jackson Heights. And I was like, what is the Brooklyn Borough president doing here? Yeah. And
Always a good question.
Many
Get outta
have
here
asked
and
that.
get lost.
yeah. And part of the reason he was there is that Eric Adams is one of the first politicians to have cultivated a Muslim base in New York City. I cannot tell you how many mosques I've been to in this primary and in this general where an uncle will pull me aside, take a selfie, and then show me a selfie of him and Eric Adams at the same mosque 4 years ago. And I say all of this because we can come to expect desperation. Andrew Cuomo refused to visit a mosque while he was the governor of the state for 10 years. It's not altogether surprising that he wouldn't see Muslims as belonging to the city he's looking to serve. But there is something about Eric Adams not just endorsing the guy he called a snake and a liar a few weeks ago, but going so far as to speak about not becoming Europe. You know, that is like the language of the like right-wing online. It is far, far removed from what I had thought would be the politics of a mayor here in New York City.
Yeah, what forms is Eric Adams using? Well, I would say check his phone, but
Yeah.
It's still locked.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Allegedly still locked.
Just to help anybody who doesn't want to unintentionally do, an Islamophobia. People have tripped over your last name. I think it's pretty easy, but we want to get you on record. What's the correct pronunciation of your first name?
Okay. Let me first say that you tripping over or making a mistake with my name, it's not Islamophobia. It's not even something I take offense to. It is when people intentionally mangle the name. And I think we saw a version of it with Trump and Kamala. And I think that's the issue with Cuomo. This is a guy who can say John Katsimatidis. It's like, just say Mamdani. But it's Zohran Mamdani.
Okay, Zohran. All right.
And I'll do the thing where it's like it's Zohran, but also sometimes the light H is a difficult sound, so it's also can be Zohran.
Okay, fair enough.
No issue in whichever one you choose.
Sweet. All right, Chris.
I was going to toss it to Katie because I think I want to hear her question answered.
Okay, great. Yeah, my burning
Ally.
question. Yeah, literally. Yeah,
Step up, step back.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we're all about at Hellgate lifting up women. That's not what this question's about, though.
Okay.
So
I don't know where we're going.
No. It's normal.
good.
It's normal. Yeah. So, obviously, you are now extremely famous. You are a certified, like, Beyonce level famous person. And I assume, the only other famous person I can think of. Maybe I could have said.
Noted mayoral candidate.
Yeah. Anyway, and I assume with that kind of fame comes the loss of something I think is one of my favorite parts of living in New York City, which is the ability to have privacy in public spaces. Just like to get lost in the crowded nowadays, or blow a red light on a city bike, something like that. So what?
They're all
what
wild
do you,
hypotheticals.
Yeah. Who would ever do those? But I guess what do you miss about the ability to be an anonymous New Yorker?
It is one of the best parts of being a New Yorker. But I think I also love the invention that is now necessary in my own life to navigate this, because it also brings me to ways of living in the city, parts of the city that I would not have been to otherwise.
Talking about disguises.
Yeah, disguises. It is funny when I don't wear my suit. It's like it's just another brown guy with a beard. I was at the Mets game and it's like nobody cares. It's great. But I also do want to shout out Aziz and the Museum of the Moving Image, and
Woo.
I say that also because I can't go have biryani at Boishaki anymore, but now for the first time I just had biryani in Aziz's office before I came out here, and I think that it's you miss the moments where you can just sit on the train and lose
Have a
yourself in
burrito.
thought. Have
Never live.
burritos on the Q train. I still remember I posted that photo without Andrew's approval. I remember that was the first comms crisis of the campaign. I was like, I'm not apologizing. But I think it's the little moments that you miss. I think it's the chance interactions. I think it's also the fact that now everything is a negotiation. So in the past, you can just move on the instinct you have as a New Yorker. If you miss the train, you can just grab the city bike, right? If you kind of just run around, and now you have to always be prepared for all of the different conversations that come with that. I can't, in large part because of the death threats that I continue to receive, cannot move around the city without an armed security detail from the NYPD. And so, one of the first times I was like, we're running late. Can we bike? And I remember one of the officers was like, well, my gun might fall out of the holster, and we have to have like
Oh my
the bike.
gosh.
But it's like this is a reality, you
Yeah.
know, and but that also means that you have to be intentional about planning that in, because if you don't take the time to put that into your own schedule, you will just travel around in the same car that mayors always travel around in, where more often than not the only New Yorker they see is their own reflection. And I think that's why I want to ensure that every single week, you know, I am biking to City Hall, I am taking the train to City Hall. You will lose sight of how urgent it is to make buses fast and free unless you take a bus. And you're like, my God, this is so slow. And it reminds you of the urgency of this. Otherwise, you can just start to think of all of these politics as just intellectual concerns, not you know, the ones that govern whether New Yorkers can actually live a safe and decent life.
Totally.
Okay, I actually have a question for you guys.
Oh.
Ooh.
Just a quick reversal.
Whoa.
Quick reversal here.
Wait, we didn't plan on this. Uh-oh.
Can you guys see which Hellgate articles I read?
Oh.
Because you know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
can?
we can.
Yes.
Do you?
Only you, though.
Well, I mean, it appears that you haven't read our ballot proposal.
Pew, 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 pew. Got him. You know what? I'll take it. I'll take the hit. I'll own it.
That's still the case, right? You're still undecided on this, the housing ballot.
And I haven't read the piece.
Okay, all right.
Read it and get back to us.
Ooh.
Speaking of burritos and biryani, what's your diet like? And honestly, I'm more interested in the second part of this question, which is: do you have any chemical vices? Do you zin? do you blast darts, or are you a perfect person?
What's blast darts?
Smoking cigarettes.
Oh.
Yeah.
One of my closest friends is from Montenegro, and he came back from a trip maybe like a year or two ago, and he came back with all of these slim cigarettes. I'll have one like
I've
every
seen
2
some of
weeks. Yeah, I'll have like a slim cigarette once every 2 weeks. And it's a great time that one time in 2 weeks.
Cool. Cool.
I don't use Zins, but Morris Katz on our team, he's a big Zin guy.
I didn't ask about him.
No, I don't. I'm just shouting out that they have a presence in my life by virtue of this one guy.
You're a pawn guy sometimes.
I am a
right?
pawn guy. I don't even want to know what's in pawn.
Yeah.
It's like a beautiful arrangement where it's like, this
Don't
is
ask,
pawn.
don't ask, don't
I have
tell.
no idea what's inside. We've all agreed this is acceptable to eat when you need to stay awake.
We need to know that you have some sort of stimulants going on because you're going to have a very busy year next year.
Yeah.
And with that being said,
I do have one thing,
okay, go on.
which is that I allow myself one Red Bull a week. So it's like
Sugar-free?
Yeah, zero
sugar-free.
sugar
Gotta be
or-
sugar-free.
okay.
But
Not crazy.
like, okay, bear with me. This is a bit of a tangent, right?
No, please.
But,
That's what a podcast is for.
So in the 2017 Summer of Hell, thank you, Andrew Cuomo, my claustrophobia reached like a new level. And I actually went to a therapist, and I went to cognitive behavioral therapy, and we like worked on strategies of dealing with being stalled in the train, because at that time I was living in Morningside Heights and going to Bay Ridge. So that was the 1 to the N to the R, and right around Atlantic Avenue, I would always get stuck in the tunnel. And I would just start to really get very anxious. And the only way I could calm my anxiety at the time was to try and have a conversation. But it's just a very weird experience. Be like, hey man, I'm freaking out. Do you want to talk to me for a few minutes? I was like, I have to figure out a different approach to this. So then I was prescribed Xanax as like a thing to just have just in case. And I would never take it, but I would just hold it. So I would be like, if it gets really bad, I have this. And now that's my relationship with Red Bull. Where I will just hold the Red Bull. I'll look at the Red Bull. It's in the car. I'll look at the Red Bull, and I'll be like, a day is really hard, and I'm like, is it hard enough to open the Red Bull? Because I'm only allowed one. And then I'll have like maybe half a Red Bull one day, and then I'll be like, okay, I get to have another half tomorrow. Anyway, this is how I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's also
love
fine.
it.
It's fine if
So
you
you
were doing
gotta
Xanax in 2017. A lot of people were doing that, and a lot of great music came out of that. So
Looking,
All I have is
looking,
claustrophobia.
looking at a Red Bull and having the ability to not drink it is why you are extremely close to being mayor, and we're all running an independent media company.
So you got a Xanax in one hand, Red Bull in the other.
I don't have the Xanax anymore. It disintegrated, actually.
All right.
Never used it.
So the mayoralty is going to be run off one Red Bull a week. Got
Yes.
it?
And chai.
Oh, okay. Well, look, you are running on a very ambitious, progressive platform.
Mhm.
You got a lot of shit to do, year one. I'm imagining that you are up at night playing mental battleships, thinking about who's going to try and steal away this agenda.
Mm-hmm.
What are the top threats or to your agenda that you are anticipating for year one?
I think the major threat is Donald Trump. And I think that in a fiscal sense, he wakes up every morning, he makes a different threat. One of those threats is to withhold funding from the city. He's already done it a number of times under Adams. He looked to withhold about $18 billion in infrastructure grants, in large part in an attempt of political retribution for the shutdown. And the city has about 8-9% of its budget from federal funding, which all things considered is actually much less than, for example, the state. A lot of our money actually comes through the state. Donald Trump looking to withhold funding is a massive factor. The other part is his attempt to fulfill his promise of creating the single largest deportation force in American history. We have to approach this job with the expectation that crisis will be a regular part of life in dealing with Donald Trump, and that we simultaneously have to move the ball forward on medium and long-term initiatives. It cannot be that every hour of every day is just spent in a defensive posture to Donald Trump, because part of the reason we got Donald Trump is that we didn't have an affirmative vision of what life would look like beyond Donald Trump. And so for me to defeat him in this battle will also require to fulfill the agenda of what a more affordable New York can look like.
Right.
And I'll just give you an example.
Sure.
The top 3 agenda points are the ones that New Yorkers will shout at me when they see me in the streets, right? It's freeze the rent stabilize tenants, make buses fast and free, deliver universal child care. There are also a number of other things that we've shared over the course of the campaign. And they also have the ability to show New Yorkers that we're going to run a very different kind of city government. The other day we had what I would argue the cutest press conference so far, in that we had a lot of babies there with us, and it was about baby baskets. And the fact that the city of New York could provide a baby basket to every one of the more than 125,000 children that will be born in the city next year for the same amount of money that we have spent in taxpayer dollars to defend Andrew Cuomo from credible accusations of sexual harassment. It's $20 million. And it could be transformative for people. It could be something that not only addresses a crisis of how expensive it is to raise a child, but also of how overwhelming it is to raise that child, and providing both resources and information. And I give this as an example of something that you can deliver without a question of what will Donald Trump do or how will we navigate Albany. This is firmly within our own power, and yet we don't do it.
Right. Speaking of freezing the rent, news out this afternoon from the New York Post that you were probably expecting, that Mayor Eric Adams is looking to potentially restack the Rent Guidelines Board to prevent you from delivering one of your key pledges, freezing the rent, in 2026. What's your plan right now?
One of the people he's proposing appointing is a reality TV star, right?
Oh, we know.
Yeah. Oh, we know.
We know
We're up
her.
on
What's-
Wow, yeah,
what's the
we're
show?
You didn't read that article either.
What's the show that she's on?
Selling the City.
It's just like so on the nose. For
Well, it's a spin-off of a larger franchise, we should be clear.
apologies, but I just it is a fitting end to an administration that has been a betrayal of working class New Yorkers, where Eric Adams has looked at having raised the rent by more than 12% on more than 2 million New Yorkers and said that's not enough. And this is the exact kind of politics New Yorkers are sick of. It's also the exact kind of politics that Andrew Cuomo looks at as worthy of an endorsement that he would accept.
What's your move, though? What can you do?
I think there's... I have the same level of confidence in delivering the rent freeze. And part of that is because my approach to the use of power will be to actually utilize it. And what I mean by that is you look at Republicans, they seem to have no limits in their imagination or how they want to use power. And as Democrats, it's like we're constructing an ever-lowering ceiling. And
Say
what
that.
we... Sorry?
Oh, I said say that.
Okay,
Sorry.
sorry.
My bad.
It's all good. It's all good. And so my point here is that, I think this is a betrayal. I think this is egregious. And I also do not think in any way that this is the end of our ability to be able to deliver. Because what we've
Year
seen...
one, though?
Sorry?
Year one?
Yes, I continue to be confident in that.
Nick, you want to hop in?
Yeah, I got. This is an unrelated question. It's a question you've been asked more than once before, but I think it's a good.
Which one of them?
It's a good just taking the temperature, seeing how we're still doing. Also, I'm just gonna preface this by saying the correct answer to this question is no. So, should billionaires exist?
No.
All right, just check. We're just checking. You've been talking to a lot of people. We're just checking
Yeah.
in.
I mean, sorry, continue, please. Okay. Speaking of billionaires, let's talk about Jessica Tisch. That was the big news this week. I mean, lots of people who support your candidacy care about criminal justice reform and reforming the NYPD. And for the past year, she has stood athwart that in many different ways. She wants to keep the gang database. She's pushing a crackdown on low-level offenses. She's ordering the NYPD to issue criminal summonses to deliveristas. I could go on.
She was the face of the effort to roll back discovery reform and
Yeah.
bail reform, and now she wants to do mess with raise the age.
How do you square all of that with your choice to make her your next police commissioner?
I think there is quite a bit that applies in this answer not only to Commissioner Tisch, but also to anyone working underneath the Adams administration. And that is the question of what is the directive of the mayor. And I have made this decision as a decision to further my very public agenda of delivering safety and justice. And so that means this is a decision to build on what she has done in entering Eric Adams's NYPD, where he stacked the upper echelons with corruption and incompetence. She started to root that out and also reduce crime, and also to create the Department of Community Safety, and also to disband the Strategic Response Group, and also to actually follow through on the exact agenda that we've been running on. And I'm someone who cares deeply about criminal legal reform. In Albany, have been on the front lines of many of the fights to retain much of the progress that was made. And I am going to be a mayor who will act in the same manner.
So she's going to reverse her position on all those things, or she's going to follow your lead in City Hall if she's your police commissioner.
I think everyone will follow my lead.
Well, I think
I'll be the
You
mayor.
can understand why we asked the question, though,
just
right?
a Bratton de Blasio situation. Like that's,
I read the piece.
Oh.
You couldn't
so
surveil
you're-
me on that article.
So you're reading the
But I read
drift?
it.
So you're reading the drift and not Hellgate. Interesting.
Damn.
Just trying to create a...
Yeah.
Like-
Crab fishers. Yeah. But seriously.
You understand the deeper question here, right?
No,
Which is that, I think probably a lot of the people in the room, a lot of the people who've been big supporters of your campaign, take criminal justice reform and police accountability extremely seriously, and see in this, and are also cognizant of the fact that the people who've been loudest about pushing you to adopt Tisch have been billionaires, have been, Republicans, carceral Democrats, people who don't share this agenda of reform. So, they see this move and they're concerned. And I guess the question is, you could have picked anybody. You didn't have to say, as Ta-Nehisi said the other day, was silence not an option? You didn't have to pick anybody. But you're making this announcement now. You're not making any other announcements about appointments at this point in time. So, what message are you telegraphing to the people who do care about police accountability and criminal justice reform with this pick?
What I'm saying in this pick is that this pick and every pick that I will make will be a pick to further the agenda that I've been running on. And the fulfillment of that agenda will mean being able to build a team around yourself where you may not have agreement on every single question, every single policy. And frankly, you need not. You must have alignment on the position you're actually being hired for. And the reason I said earlier, will the police commissioner follow my lead or will others follow my lead? At the end of it, I am the mayor and I am the one accountable to the people of this city. And I have a very clear vision of what it looks like to fulfill that agenda. And New Yorkers will see that there will be people in my administration to the left of me and to the right of me. And the thing that will unite all of them is the very clear agenda. There can be disagreement with me, disagreement on issues and policies. There cannot be disagreement on what you're being hired for in that agenda. That is something that I also know I will only be able to earn the belief in when I deliver it. And that's something that we'll start to do on January 1st.
We are, thank you for that answer. We're going to go now to...
One person was clapping, you stopped them. You let everybody clap for all the...
It wasn't a laugh line, man,
it was heartfelt. I saw them.
We're rounding third here. I want to get a question in from Jesse, and then we're going to do a lightning round of some yes and no's, because you can't stop. You can't leave without doing some yes or no's. So this is a question from a CUNY journalism school student.
Yeah, we have a great question here from Usha Sukai, who wants to know, what will be your strategy for addressing disrepair and rent-stabilized units if landlords are not allowed to raise the rent on stabilized tenants?
There are about 1,100 or so rent-stabilized buildings, almost all of which are in the Bronx, that are in a real state of disrepair. And there is the ability for the city to actually address that without putting a blanket rent hike on more than 2 million tenants. And that, to me, comes from making programs like neighborhood pillars actually be workable. It comes also from tackling the rising costs that landlords are facing, separate from a question of rent. And there are a few things that come to mind for me here. One is that utilization of Section 8 is around 52-53%. There's the ability to both freeze the rent and also actually increase the amount of rent that landlords are collecting if you are committed to doing the work necessary to enroll everyone who's eligible in Section 8 into that program. And I bring this up because part of this is also about government incompetence and a lack of interest. The second piece is that if you speak to affordable housing landlords, what I've heard often is that insurance has doubled in recent years. A number of those landlords came together to create something called Milford Street Captive, pooling their risk and depressing some of the cost of that insurance. If the city was to invest a significant amount of capital within that, that could have the further effect of actually pushing that down. And one of the very strange ways in which Eric Adams has united New Yorkers, whether they are tenants or homeowners, is he'd made life more expensive for all. Right? He's raised the rent on rent-stabilized tenants. He's also raised the water bill to the highest it's been in 13 years. He's also supported Con Edison when they wanted to increase gas and electric by $65 a month. But also, he made a promise that he would change the property tax system within 100 days of being elected, which is insane as a promise. Obviously, he didn't do that. Didn't do it at all. Tried to defend the system in court, lost many times. I'm very excited at having property tax reform as a big part of our Albany agenda, because it has a very strange political constituency that does not map into the easy politics in our city. And I think the nature of that constituency is one that actually gives it the possibility of success, because it could provide something resembling fairness, when right now it's an example that many homeowners look at as why you cannot trust the government on anything, because it continues a legally certifiable inequitable property tax system.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to do some yes or no's and try to keep it as close to yes or no as possible, but we'll give some leeway.
How many inshallahs can I put in?
At least there's no air horn this time.
Yeah.
That air horn was great.
Yeah, fuck. We lost it.
Yeah.
What a different time, huh?
Yeah.
That forum.
Yeah. Our first lightning round question. In your first year, will you evict Elizabeth Street Garden and build affordable housing on that lot?
Yes.
Oh,
I read that Hellgate article. My mother really disagrees with me.
Wow.
Tells me all the
internal
time.
family disagreement about Elizabeth.
Huge.
The mayor does control the streets of New York City. Don't need Albany for that. So some quick streets questions for you. Do you support the universal daylighting bill that's currently in the city council?
Yes.
Do you support charging for parking on street more in New York City to raise revenue?
I think I'm interested in residential parking. I wouldn't go to
Okay.
that point.
Okay. And
Parking permits is what I'm saying.
residential
Yeah.
permits. Okay.
Yeah.
Eric Adams forced City Bike to lower the speed limit on the e-bikes from 18 miles an hour to 15. Will you tell City Bike that they can raise the speed back up to 18 miles an hour?
our readers really care
Yeah,
about
this
this.
is big.
I'm going to keep it at 15.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I didn't say
you
anything.
could try to get out of here fast, but we'll be able to catch you. 'Cause you're
I'm
only going
doing that.
15
I'm doing that for the
miles
Fourth Estate, so you can find me.
All right. This one's for the New York City kids. If it ever snows again in New York City, will you actually make it a snow day
Ooh.
and not remote school?
There's got to be a snow day.
All right.
Okay, I gotta.
Yeah.
I have a very fond memory of a snow day, where I used to live on in Morningside Heights, and we would go to Riverside Park whenever it snowed, and we would take a trash can and just pack it with snow at the bottom of the hill. And one time went sledding. It was about 11:30 p.m. I was on the back of the sled. We nailed the jump. The sled turned around. I became on the front of the sled. My friend landed on my head. I got concussed.
That's a fun memory.
Really fun. Awesome. Sick.
Worked
You
out.
elicited a
Worked out for me.
concussion story.
Yeah, there you are.
All right.
But
so
you had fun. So
Yeah, I had a great time. I didn't remember at that exact moment. I was concussed.
and memories like that for a new generation. So would you commit to resuming the Ask the Mayor segment on Brian Lehrer, or something similar with Hellgate?
I already committed to Brian Lehrer.
Yeah.
Back
we're
in
good with
back,
that.
You know, we'll
back,
like that.
back
Yeah,
in
that's good.
January.
That's
Back in
good.
January, and Brian was probably like, "All right, buddy. Like, yeah, I'm sure you're gonna come back for a weekly."
Yeah, confident, you know.
I feel like
Brian, and also,
we're at the stage in the campaign where I think you're getting a lot of questions about like where do the ideals of the campaign meet the necessary compromises of governing. So here's a question. If you find yourself presented with a situation where the deal on the table is universal child care, but it's
only
means-
for Hellgate
but
subscribers.
it's means tested.
yes.
Is means tested universal child care an incremental deal that you can accept?
I think that compromise is both a significant part of politics, and also it all has to be in service of the actual vision. What I mean by that is, in 2023, we had a campaign in Albany that I led alongside Deputy Majority Leader Mike Gianaris to make every bus free in New York City. We won 5 bus routes. It's not quite every bus, but it was both incremental and it was worthwhile because it showed the potential of the vision. So to me, I think you cannot win universal childcare in your first year, right? But you can advance the vision. And to me, the vision is the universality of the fact that it is both affordable and also that the bureaucracy is not one that is so suffocating that someone cannot actually get through and access it. So the way that I view this is, we have talked about 6 weeks to 5 years of age. There's the necessity of thinking about phasing it in and the scaling of it up, but I think that what you're discussing is actually a different approach to me than the question of staging or the question of scale. I don't think you can. Because I don't think that you can. My point is that you cannot start means testing and then get to you will not get to universal.
It's not a path on the way.
That's not the scale.
Okay. Should public libraries bring back free streaming services so New Yorkers can watch your mom's movies? And would you fund that?
I have no interest in funding it specifically for anyone I was related to. Can you tell me a little more about this? When did we have
Canopy.
this?
It used to be a thing.
Yeah, there used to be a music streaming service. I forget what it's called, and we also used to have Canopy. You used to be able to get it through your NYPL card.
Wow,
Yeah.
that sounds great.
And then
What happened?
and then a guy with a really shiny head showed up.
Who is?
With an earring, and his name was Eric
okay,
Adams. All right. Assemblymember
Count Olaf.
Zohran,
Where are we-
thank you so much for being here.
That's the last thing I say.
No, we've got one last thing.
Okay.
It's almost 6 o'clock. There's a bunch of people here. We're all in Astoria. Where should people go eat? Where should we go
Ooh.
after?
Okay.
Oh.
I had someone come up to me on the street. They were like, "Stop telling everybody where we eat." I'm like, I don't think about it, but that kind of screwing it up for a lot of my neighbors. Okay. I love Boishaki, which is on 36th Avenue, not too far from here. You can get great biryani. Have you ever had aloo borta? Very good. If you haven't had it, Boishaki, great. I think Little Flower is great. Where would I also recommend? Himo's on Steinway. Great smoothies. Number 45 used to be, I think it still is, the Refresher. Cucumber, mint, and I think it's also mango. It's very, very good. And then there is this spot. I have no idea how it works. It's a little bit north of Himo's. It's on Steinway. It's a food truck that also has a place where you eat inside. But you go out to order on the street, and then you take the food in. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think it's like a Yemeni joint. It's great.
Okay.
It feels like it's definitely in violation of a number of codes, but
Cut this.
for
Cut
right
this,
now,
cut this for the actual
until
podcast.
January 1st, you should definitely go
All
there.
right. Remember,
Definitely go there.
Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani sent you to all of those places. Let the locals know that's why it's now swamped and they can't get any food.
The guy
all
who
right.
ruined
Thanks,
it.
Assemblymember.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being here.
Thank
we
you guys.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. We're gonna.
Tell Bernie we said hi.
Are you guys coming?
I'm actually.
All right, we're still gonna. I want just as loud as an applause for when we leave the stage. All right. All right. So we just want.